Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spilling the Tea. Today we're here with the Vice President of the Overwatch League himself. We got Jon Spector. So if you'd like to introduce yourself a bit for people that might not know exactly who you are, go ahead.
Hey everyone, it's nice to be here with you. This is John speaking. I'm the VP on the Overwatch League side of things, responsible really for overseeing the league product, which would be schedule, format, rules, that type of stuff, and then also working with all of our teams and players on a range of other topics.
Yeah, and we're really happy to have you on and be able to ask you a few questions. So, a bit of a light question to start off. P2D asks, tell us a tale of good and evil. How did you leave New York behind for a glorious life in Boston?
He's must be familiar with the Boston weather to still ask that question. I think it's like 30 something degrees today, which is better than it has been, but still pretty frigid. I actually lived in Boston for a couple of years about 15 years ago, and then moved to New York when I was working at the NBA, and came back to Boston just a year or two ago actually for my wife's job. She's working at a hospital here. She's a pediatrician, and so she had a pretty cool opportunity to come here. And luckily for me, with Overwatch League, they've been really flexible about where I live. And pre-pandemic, I was traveling to California and all the events and a lot, but now I've actually been home for the last year, which has been really nice.
Would you say you enjoy being in Boston the most out of the places that you've been to, or is there somewhere specific that you like to stay in?
We love living here. Like we're in one of the suburbs a little bit outside of Boston. I have two little kids. My daughter is 3 and my son is 5 months, and it's been like a really nice place for having young kids, with playgrounds and parks everywhere and great schools, and still really close to downtown Boston for all the sports and entertainment and good food when the pandemic goes away. I think I loved New York and living there, and Boston's been great too. Like there's a lot to like about here. I will, and maybe I shouldn't say this to the Boston Uprising guys, but like I am very much a diehard New York sports fan still, and no amount of living in Boston is ever going to change that.
I think that's reasonable. You can't ditch a team that you've supported for your entire life, you know?
That's right. Yeah, it's mostly the Yankees for me. Like I actually care less about the other stick and ball sports, but I've been a diehard Yankee fan since I was 4.
Joe Boko7 asks, will there be more of an emphasis on storylines and personalities for the 2021 OWL production?
One of the things that we really wanted to do last year as we were planning events all over the world was like a lot more vlog content. And I think you even saw like at some of the first homestands, like people like Sideshow were out, interviewing the players in Texas and talking about that experience. And there was just like a lot of cool stuff that we wanted to be able to do around all of those events, and bringing player personalities to the forefront. That plan obviously became a lot harder when everyone was sort of stuck in their own homes or competition facilities, and we've lost, for safety reasons, which is the right thing to do, but we've lost a lot of access to players and coaches and other people around the league as a result. So we've been trying to rebuild for 2021 in the environment that we're in, like how we do that effectively, and I think you'll start to see a lot of that into 2021. We've been testing some different things around player cams and using player comms and some of those things to just bring players more into the show, where previously, right, if they're all on stage at Blizzard Arena, you can see that passion, right? You get the occasional desk slam after a big win, or you see you guys win and you get up and there's all the post-match rituals of going over and shaking hands, and we lost all of that. So trying to think about how you replace that this year has definitely been top of mind, and it's something I hope we can do a lot better job of.
Yeah, I know a lot of those moments were my favorite on stage, but also like you mentioned, like people like Sideshow being able to go around and interview people, because I remember I think it was in Washington he interviewed me, and I got to talk about the Boston team for that season and like our expectations. It was nice to be able to have those sort of those opinions and those sort of thoughts be sort of made public, and be able to talk to the guys that are, you know, doing the production and behind the scenes like that. So
there's a balance on a lot of this, right? Like, we know you guys are incredibly busy, and your scrimmage schedules keep you super busy, and then you're playing a couple of matches, and that needs to remain the focus. And we also, like, we don't want to be taking over all of your free time for league content either. Like, we want you guys, when you have breaks, to have breaks and to be able to relax. But I think getting that balance, like, one of the things that I think is really nice about this year's schedule and format is that you've got a couple of bye weeks kind of just naturally built into the schedule. Like, every single tournament cycle, you've got one of the 3 qualifying weeks off. For, you know, even if you make the global tournament phase for that 4th week, you've then got a week in between the tournaments as a break. And I think some of that too will help us get that balance of giving you guys the time off and the rest that you need, while also still saying, hey, look, we'd love for you to come on a show with us, or join the broadcast, or participate in content, to make sure that we're doing a great job of showcasing all the awesome players to the fans out there.
Instabus asks, how much money would it take for you to make Sideshow dress up in a different costume on the broadcast each week?
My sense is that Sideshow's rates for these types of things are very reasonable. Like, he's already selling his forehead. Like, it didn't seem very expensive for the Philadelphia Fusion to make that investment. I assume, without having talked to Josh about it, that were we just to magically have new costumes appear, like, I guess that he wears them, and I think that could be fun. So it's a good suggestion, and we can go talk to his agent about it.
Sounds great. Few Astronaut 8073 asks, obviously COVID-19 dramatically changed plans for OWL in 2020. How did you deal with the sort of stress of making the tough decisions that impacted players and fans literally, like, all around the world?
Yeah, last year was hard. I remember really distinctly, like, even kind of when we first launched Overwatch League several years ago, we had what we called Project 2020, and Project 2020 was really like this multi-year strategy effort in coordination with all of the teams to figure out how you run global home and away competition and run lots of big live events all over the year. And it was like something that no sports league has really ever done before. And we felt really good about that plan. Like, the original 2020 plan was not perfect by any means. There's a lot that, even without the pandemic happening, in hindsight, I would go back and try to make some changes to. But it was going to work. Like, we had 5 really successful events in the US before we had to shut things down, and watching in the matter of like a couple of days, plans that we had spent years on need to be scrapped and then rebuild it. Like, it was tough, but also for me personally as a leader, I learned a ton. And it's an experience that I think I'll keep with me for the rest of my career. Like, the first thing that we did that I thought was helpful is we set a North Star of, we're a digital competition that people could participate in safely from their own homes or wherever they are. And that gave us this really big advantage of being able to, no matter what, always put safety first and say, look, like, we're going to shut the thing down until we know better what's happening. We then also, I think, made a decision that worked really well in hindsight of not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of building a new plan, but instead, right, what we did is we said, okay, what teams are in a position where they can compete next weekend? Let's have those teams play each other. And initially, right, like, when we came back, we only released a schedule for a couple of weeks based on what we knew at that time. And then we said, clearly a little bit naively in hindsight, we said, hey, by the time that we get back to like May, we're going to be able to go back to normal. And that's when we think there are going to be events again. But we didn't get too far ahead of ourselves then, right? And then by the time we got to May, we said, okay, look, like, this is the environment we're in for a little bit longer. Now, how do we take what we've learned and make it cool? And that was where we were able to put that first May Melee tournament format together and take a lot of the feedback from from you guys, like our players, in terms of what you wanted to see to make the season more exciting and meaningful with online competition. And then that May Melee went really well, and we said, okay, great, like let's do that a couple more times this year. And that was when we then had the confidence to put a new plan together. We're able to rebuild a plan that had taken us years to put together in a matter of weeks. We kept everyone safe in terms of our players, our staff, our fans, and then still we're able to deliver like really awesome epic entertainment where we're not we're not the ones on the front lines of the pandemic. There's so many heroes out there, but I do think it's really cool and special to be a source of joy for people all over the world in a time that's been really challenging.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear you talk about it from your perspective, because obviously it was a very confusing time for like players and people playing, but I've talked about it before how I think that it was handled super well by you guys to get it up and running. I mean, basically within like what 4 weeks, we had online competition after everything sort of getting cancelled on a moment's notice. So yeah, it's super interesting to hear your perspective on that. Artillatron asks, when it's safe in the future to do so, can we please bring back player karaoke sometime? Sincerely, Apex fans.
We would love to. It's one of those things, like there's this fun history of competitive Overwatch as Overwatch League heads into its 4th season, where I think we now have an ability to start going back and mining some of that for fun content, but also like that's not just karaoke and things like that. I think we also now have a fun ability to go back and do a better job of talking about some of the players who have been in the league all 4 years. Like, where did they come from, and how has their career evolved over time? But yes, to answer the karaoke question, like personally, I think it's super fun and yet another cool way to showcase how talented, or in some cases not that talented, our players are. And like, it would be a lot of fun. So I hope that we can do it sometime soon.
Yeah, I think I definitely stray towards the more not talented in that sense, but it would be interesting it would be definitely good content, I think, for sure.
We all have things that we're good at and less good at, and I think if you're not the best singer but you are fearless and brave, then you can still participate in karaoke and it can be fun.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's the approach. That's the approach I always go for. Balfuzzies asks, for people wondering, obviously, when Overwatch 2 is released, will the Overwatch League be played on that, and how quick will the transition be?
Speaking actually more as like a fan than anything, we want to transition to Overwatch 2 on Overwatch League as quickly as we can do so in a way that feels fair to all of our teams and players. Like, I can't wait for it personally, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun watching pro players get their hands on all the new heroes and maps and be able to debut the push game mode in OWL and all of those things. So our goal really is to move over to Overwatch 2 really as quickly as we can, but to do that in a way that that has kind of an orderly transition, so to speak.
Personally, as well, I'm quite interested in, when that transition happens, because obviously with the recent announcements at the BlizzConline, talking about like tanks and how they're looking at doing changes to them and the way that they're played, obviously it's piqued my interest, so I can't wait to be able to actually like try that out and then transition that into like competition for OWL as well.
Yeah, we assume, right, and I know like all the developers have been really careful correctly to not frame anything that you saw at BlizzConline as sort of final decisions, and this is stuff that they're constantly tinkering with. But like, yeah, if Reinhardt gets a second charge of Fire Strike, like that's going to change how you play that hero in important ways, and I think personally, like, think that's really cool. And also, we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? But like, again, one of the biggest reasons why people love Overwatch League and want to watch is to get better at the game, to learn how to play their favorite heroes at a higher level. And I think that will become even sort of more important and something that we can do really well on the Overwatch League side of things when you see new heroes come out or maybe changes made to other previous heroes, like you guys are going to be where they look, right? People who want to learn how to play Reinhardt if he's adjusted in those ways, they're going to turn to you, and we want to put you guys on that big stage front and center to be a place where people can learn and get really excited about what's coming and what they now need to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be exciting for fans and players alike to do that, to be able to do that and see that. Enders asks, is there a game that you think is going to be the most exciting game for this upcoming season? One that maybe you're specifically looking forward to? Two teams that you want to see go toe to toe?
The team that built the schedule, I think, did a fantastic job of putting together something that feels really fair. It's been fun reading some of the threads on the internet of like who's got the highest strength of schedule, and knowing that we've looked at all of that and think it's actually really even across the teams, and that the format this year is really fair and compelling. The only place where like I personally went in and put my thumb on the scale as people were building the schedule was opening week. I said, look, like I want to launch the season with a couple of specific matchups, and thought that the Shock versus Gladiator storyline is really cool, of Moth going over there and the Gladiators retooling a little bit in the offseason. I think that's going to be a really cool California rivalry, and can't wait to see that. Battle for Texas is always fun. I feel like it's also always surprising. Like the last couple, people have assumed that there's going to be an obvious stomp or a winner, and they've all been really good. So I think that one's going to be really fun. And then I also put my thumb on the scale by putting Philly versus Seoul in week one, just given some of the trash talk coming out of the Final Four stomps that we saw last year. And I think Philly wants their revenge. So that'll be a really cool way to kick things off in the Asia side of things too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to the opening matches. To finish things off, we got a question from the Overwatch League Twitter. What do you like the most about Overwatch League Twitter, and why?
We have incredibly talented and handsome and smart people working on the social media side of things for the league, and I can't say enough good things about them. I'll be watching my PayPal account now to make sure that I delivered that line correctly. But I think, like, broadly, right, the slightly more serious answer to the meme question, I've been really happy with how we've seen kind of our content and our voice for the Overwatch League evolve. And I think Twitter is one very obvious example of that, of trying to take ourselves a little bit less seriously, lean more into having fun with our community and our fans and our players. And I think even just like a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in terms of content from us and that voice on social media reflects that change of having more fun and really leaning into cool stuff that's going on with our game and our league. And I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. If you compare kind of the tone that we've taken on social and content more broadly in the last, call it 6 to 12 months versus what we were doing 2 or 3 years ago, hopefully people have noticed that shift. And personally, I think it's been really cool and great to see, and something that I've talked with that team a lot about, and they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the stuff on this sort of our social media in the last year or so has been great fun to sort of see, and watching a lot of the stuff unfold on our Twitter has been great. That's all the questions we have time for today. So thank you very much, Jon. I hope people got the insight on the questions that they were looking for.
Awesome. Yeah. Hopefully fans enjoy this, and can't wait for the start of the season. I know you're working on getting over here still now, but hopefully things in Boston continue to improve, and it'll be awesome to be able to come check things out this year myself too.
Yeah, absolutely.